What is going on, everybody? Naughty President here with another ranking list video. Now, I'm doing something a little different. I'm going to be ranking all of the Legend of Zelda franchise that I have played. Now, there are some games that I have not played at all, which are here. Which are, you know, some of the classics, some of the older ones, some of the handheld ones, some are even the newer ones. Some of them I just haven't gotten to. And then, of course, there are some that I have not finished, and I'm going to put them here. And right off the bat, I already know everybody on this video is going to be like, whoa, 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 Naughty President, you've never finished Ocarina of Time? No, I've never beaten the game. I haven't really even played that much into it. I've only had the opportunity to play it at a friend's house as a kid, so I never got to play it. I have it now as an adult, but I just haven't gotten around to playing it. I've been playing other games. So without further ado, we're going to talk about the top 13 games of the Legend of Zelda franchise that I have played, and I'm going to rank them all right now. So let's get this list started. Now, I know there are a few people out there that don't consider this technically a Legend of Zelda game because, yes, it is actually a Warriors game, but it is all about Legend of Zeldas, so on my list, I'm counting it. The reason why this game is number 13 on my list because it's just not a very good Zelda game. It's just a opportunity to have a new Warriors game that didn't do as well as the first one. The story of this game is just basically them trying to kind of come up with a prequel to Breath of the Wild, and they didn't pull it off very well. The gameplay mechanics of this game don't really hit its mark. I think the very first Hyrule Warriors game that they made was way better than this game, and it's going to be higher up on this list. So that is why this game is number 13, and like I said, this game was not that fun. So this is my least favorite Zelda game that I have played. Number 12 on this list is Phantom Hourglass. Now, I actually never got to play this on the DS. I actually played this on the Wii U Virtual Console. I actually streamed this game a long time ago, and this game, it's okay. I didn't really care for the touchscreen. You know, attacking, everything you do is based on touchscreen. The controls were a little janky, but overall, it wasn't that bad of a game. The story was actually pretty interesting, and like I said, when you control Link, having to attack with tapping is really irritating. I was really hoping that they would, hopefully in the future they bring this to where you can use button controls, but who knows if that's going to happen. But overall, this game it's like a solid 7 out of 10. This is definitely not as bad as the last game, but it's definitely not one of the greatest Zelda games out there. So this one is number 12 on my list. If they just got rid of the touch controls, it would be a lot higher. Number 11 on my list is The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening Remake. Now I'm going to start this entry right off by saying I never played the original Link's Awakening. I've only played the remake, so I don't know how that hinders my judgment on why this is placed at number 11. I feel like if I would have played the original, it probably would have settled in better and I probably would have enjoyed it better. But just looking at what I've actually played, which is the remake, overall, it's not a bad game. It's, the classic Zelda formula. You go up, up top camera view, take down the bad guys, save the hero, or the hero saves everybody, saves the town. It was a pretty decently cute, fun Zelda game. Would I rank it higher if it had more action and more adventure? Yeah, probably. It was a little boring, just, being a small little short story. Definitely not worth $60 what I paid for it. This game came out, it was like $30. That'd be alright, but overall, pretty solid game. Another 7 out of 10 Zelda game. If it was a little longer, it would have probably been a little higher, had more content, but overall, solid game. Now, right off the bat, I'm sure a lot of you are wondering why Breath of the Wild, of all Zelda games, is at my number 10. And the reason why is because although this is a fantastic RPG game, I will say that, in my opinion, it's not a great Zelda game. Fantastic RPG game, but I don't like the fact that it's an open world Zelda game. I know that sounds weird. A lot of people love the change. I don't care for the change. I do think it's a very fun game. I think that I spent over 50 hours in this game. It was definitely worth the time to play the game. Overall, I enjoyed the game, but I don't like the formula. I like the classic Zelda dungeon crawling. You know, you got four dungeons to go to kind of thing, and you go collect the 4 pieces, put together the Triforce, all that stuff. That's the style of Zelda game I enjoy. Now, overall, yeah, like, it does have a really good story. I will give you that, but it's just you get lost in the Zelda game because there's so much to do. Usually that's not a negative in a game, but in this case, in my opinion, it is, because there's just so much to do that it's overwhelming. And I enjoy Zelda games to just play it for the story. That's the reason why I play Zelda games, for the story of Zelda and Link and saving the princess, defeating Ganon, and all that. Like I said, definitely don't think that this is a bad game. It's just not the formula I want Zelda to continue on. Now, I'm hoping what they do with the Legend of Zelda franchise is that they keep making Breath of the Wild to please the fans, because they already announced Breath of the Wild 2 is coming out. But I'm hoping what they do is they release either remakes, and like they've been doing with like Skyward Sword and stuff like that, and hopefully they'll come out with like Twilight Princess, Wind Waker, stuff like that every few years on top of more Breath of the Wild, so we can get, you know, old school Zelda games and new school Zelda games every few years or so. I think that would work out really well, because like I said, I enjoyed the classic Zelda formula. So overall, yes, Breath of the Wild is a good game. Don't think it's not. It's a fantastic RPG. As an RPG, I give this a 9 out of 10. As a Zelda game though, I'd say, I don't know, somewhere like a 7.5 out of 10. Like I said, I've said it multiple times. Do not think I don't like this game. It's just not as high up on my standards for a Zelda game like everybody else's. Number 9 on my list is Majora's Mask. Now, the thing about the Majora's Mask is I never really played the original version. I only really played the 3DS remake that they put out, and I really enjoyed the game. I thought the story was super interesting. The fact that it was one of the more unique Zelda games, but it also stuck to the classic formula of Zelda. I thought that was really, really cool. I loved the different masks, and each mask having its own power. I love the fact that you got to just explore each dungeon. You can like go back and kind of just go to any dungeon you want to because of the time reset. Now, the time reset, I will say, got really tedious after a while. But once you learn a few, you know, songs and stuff and be able to slow down time and stuff, it made it a lot easier. But overall, it's a fun Zelda game. I think overall, the tiny bit I played of Ocarina, which I can't really comment much on, but I enjoyed Majora's Mask more than that. Like I said, hold that to it with a candle, because like I said, I haven't actually played Ocarina, so I can't count it on this list. But I just really enjoyed Majora's Mask. So Majora's Mask, I think, was solid 8 out of 10. Fun Zelda game that I don't have any problem going back to, and it's actually one of the harder Zelda games too, which made it more interesting and more challenging. So 8 out of 10, fun Zelda game. Number 8 on my list is the Legend of Zelda Oracle of Seasons and Oracle of Ages games. Now, for those that don't know, these are actually 2 separate style games, but they're basically the same game. It's kind of hard to explain. They're kind of like how Pokemon Gold and Pokemon Silver are the same game but different games. It's along those lines, but there is a big difference between these 2 styles of games. So, the Oracle of Ages is a puzzle-heavy game, while the Seasons is more of an action-based game. They are technically 2 separate games though, because they're 2 separate dungeons and 2 separate stories. They even got separate maps. So like when it comes to seasons, one of the big key factors in seasons I really enjoyed was each season, when you changed the seasons as you progress through the game, it would change the puzzles within the game. So like if you had one area in winter, there was a cliff and you couldn't get up it, if you switched it to summer, some vines would be there for you to climb up. And ages, you could change between two different time periods. You can go into the into the past and into the present. I really enjoyed the fact that you could have two separate style Zelda games within technically one style game. And the fun thing about these two games, if you actually combine the two stories together, you get basically like a giant Super Zelda story. Which, I mean, it's kind of hard to explain what I'm talking about, but I really enjoyed the fact that these games were so different, but yet they were basically part of the same game. I would love to see, these are actually my game that I want remade, like Link's Awakening, the most out of all Zelda games right now. So that is why this game is number 8 on my list. It is an extremely underrated Zelda game that came out on the Game Boy Color, and I owned both games and I played through both games and loved both games to death. This is easily a 9 out of 10 for sure. That is why I put this as number 8. Number 7 on my list is Hyrule Warriors The Definitive Edition that came out on the Nintendo Switch. Now, like I said in the previous entry, Hyrule Warriors technically isn't a Zelda game, but I am counting it because it is my list. Hyrule Warriors is one of my favorite Zelda games because of the content that's in the game. You get so much for the base price of this game. You can play up to 31 characters all together, plus you get your own story. Like, it has its own original Zelda story, which I think is awesome. I actually put over 130 hours in this game because I would go to my friend's house and we'd sit there and play non-stop on this game for hours and hours and hours, trying to finish out all the side stuff you can do. Because not only does this game have a great story and an original story, but you have different modes. Like, you've got the adventure modes and all the different versions of the adventure modes, going to different maps and being able to do different things. It's just, it has so much content into one game, and I just love that. And I love the versatility of each character, being able to do its own thing and playing the characters I love throughout the franchise. And it goes all the way up to Breath of the Wild, because it was obviously released before Breath of the Wild. So you can play through multiple generations of Zelda games throughout multiple characters, and you even can play as brand new characters. So yes, this game, now we're gonna get to the decimals because I'm getting to the top, the top tier game. So this one is getting a 9.2 out of 10 on the fact that I get so much content out of this game. So that is why this is number 7 on my list. Number 6 on this list is a Legend of Zelda Link Between Worlds. This was actually my very favorite Zelda game that was on the Nintendo 3DS. A Link Between Worlds was a really cool Zelda game because it was one of the few Zelda games where you didn't have a linear story. I mean, yes, there is a story, but you could go to any dungeon you wanted basically at the beginning of the game, because instead of, just going to a dungeon, collecting the item, defeating the monster with that item, and then, finishing out the dungeon, you actually have all your items in your house where you could grab items, swap them out with anything you wanted for like a price, and you could just go to any dungeon with that item. It was actually a really cool design change that they did for Zelda. I really enjoyed that. And the fact that they introduced the 2D going onto the surfaces and being able to swap between portrait mode and 3D mode, so you can scale walls and go behind things and go around things. It was just a really cool design that they did. Even later on in the game, you get to go to a whole nother realm via going through picture mode. So it was just a really cool new idea that Zelda made, and it was different from all the other Zelda games. I thought that was a really cool thing that they did. I would love to see this game come to modern consoles, but like I said, I don't think that's going to happen. But this game is awesome. I highly recommend this for anybody that still wants a this 3DS game before the eShops close, because this game is definitely a banger in my opinion. I give this Zelda game a 9.3 out of 10. Just overall, what a great Zelda game, and an absolute joy to play. Number 5 on this list is The Legend of Zelda 4 Sword Adventures that was released on the Nintendo GameCube. Now this game you may never have played of, because I don't think it was very popular back in the day, because the GameCube wasn't as popular as say like the PS2, but this was one of my favorite Zelda games that came out on the Nintendo GameCube. The 4 Sword Adventures was unique in its own way because you played as Link, who uses the 4 swords, who splits himself into 3 other clones. So you're controlling technically 4 different Links, and you use those 4 Links to travel throughout the world and use their abilities using special patterns and stuff, lining them up a certain way to move things and attack enemies and stuff. The whole plot of the game is there's a Shadow Link, a shadow version of yourself that's out there causing mayhem and havoc, and you have to go out there and stop him. It's a great fun game that you have to do a lot of puzzle solving and stuff like that because you're controlling 4 separate Links. And overall, this game just has a cool aesthetic to it because it's one of the more unique Zelda style playing games. They tried to redo this kind of with the Triforce Heroes, making it a multiplayer thing. It didn't work out very well. That's why I was glad to see this game when it came out for its time was so unique. And I absolutely love the idea of having 4 separate little clone Links. It was just being able to control them in a pattern and even being able to control them by themselves. It made everything that I wanted in a puzzle solving Zelda game. And I think this game is absolutely fantastic. I give this game a solid 9.4 out of 10. This is a fun Zelda game. Like I said, one of the best games that came out on the Nintendo GameCube in my opinion. Number 4 on this list is The Legend of Zelda and the Minish Cap. Now this Zelda game is by far the best Zelda game that came out on the Game Boy Advance. This game was so cool because for once the bad guy wasn't Ganondorf, it was Vati, a whole new bad guy that they created specifically for this game. I remember sinking tons and tons of hours into this game with my friend Elzo the Cap. Yes, you had a talking cap that would help you out throughout the game, and you didn't even get to use the Master Sword. They gave you a whole new different type of sword, the Bakori sword, that was able to make you have the power to shrink you into tiny little elf. Well, I mean, Link's always an elf, but you get to shrink into tiny little size of like, say like a mouse, a little smaller than that even, and you get to play throughout like fighting bad guys as tiny versions of yourself and normal versions, tons of puzzle solving. This game had everything you wanted on a handheld Zelda game. You got collectibles to be able to fuse keystones and be able to, you know, unlock stuff by doing that. It gives you power-ups and stuff like that. This game was so different than like you see with, you know, Ocarina and all that stuff was just, you know, just you fight Ganondorf, save Princess. Yes, you had to go save Princess from Vati, but they did it in a different way. I love the whole shrinking mechanic of the game. The game itself is actually not that hard of a game to play, but it is also a very fun game until you get to the final boss. I will tell you right now, if you play this game, you need to stock up. The final boss in this game is hard as heck. So, like I said, this game, favorite Zelda game on the Nintendo Advance, or on the Game Boy Advance, I would give this game a solid 9.5 out of 10. This is almost perfection to Zelda. We're not there yet to perfection, but we're almost there. Number 3 on my list is The Legend of Zelda, the Skyward Sword. Now, this game has a lot of controversy around it. A lot of people didn't like the motion controls and having to only rely on motion controls. I had no problems with the motion controls. When it came out on the Wii, it was revolutionary to me. Playing a Zelda game by swinging the Wii remote made me feel like I was Link. I thought that was one of the coolest parts of this game. Now, my opinion on this game is probably going to be mostly nostalgia based. I'm not even gonna sugarcoat it because I had so much fun as like a teenager playing this game. But one of the things I loved about the game was that it was like the first one in the timeline of Zelda, showing everybody living in the sky, coming down to Hyrule, and exploring Hyrule for the very first time. I thought the introduction of the Loft Wings was really cool, flying around on a bird. Yeah, you had to use the motion controls to control the bird. That wasn't too hard to control. I love the idea of being able to collect all the cubes. It was a nice collecting thing part of Zelda. You could use the cubes to upgrade your items and get new items. All of that was so cool. I love the story of, a lot of people didn't like the villain. I thought the villain was kind of interesting, honestly. The fact that you didn't even see Ganon till the very end of the game is pretty cool in my opinion, because it wasn't another Zelda title where it was just defeat Ganon. It was another attempt to try out a new villain for the series. Overall, even when they re-released it on the Switch, I thought that was so cool because it was like nobody was expecting it. I was one of the few people that was hyped that it was coming to Switch. And when it did come to Switch, I still used the motion controls. I didn't use the button controls. I actually didn't like the button controls on the Switch. So, overall, great game. I don't care what the haters say. I give this a solid 9.7 out of 10 because this game is just so fun to me, and it's one of my favorite Zelda games, even if Fi or Fi, whichever way you pronounce it, can be annoying at times. Number 2 on this list is just a huge toss-up between this spot and number 1 because they're both almost equally as great games. But I'm sticking with number 2 as being The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker. Now, the interesting thing about The Wind Waker for me is I played the GameCube version, but I never beat it. Then, when the Wii U version came out, I bought that, and I've completely finished that game, and I've played through it 3 times. That game is almost a masterpiece when it comes to Zelda, in my opinion. I love the art style of The Wind Waker. That is number 1, the best part about the game. The art style is completely different, and it was the very first time they did it of any Zelda game. They went with the cartoony style. A lot of people got turned off by it. I love the art style. The story, completely different than any other Zelda game we've ever gotten. They put Hyrule underwater. They made everything based on you having to be on a boat and go around exploring Hyrule while on a boat. That was so different and so cool and so unique. The fact, I love all the characters they introduced. Tetra, by far, spoilers if you haven't played it, by far the coolest version of Princess Zelda we have ever gotten in a Zelda game. And the boat being the king, that was amazing. I just love that Legend of Zelda game. The bad guys that they introduced into this game was, it was Ganon again, but it was a different art style, different version. He played differently. It's just everything about this game just screams awesome. This game is a solid, like I said, it is a coin flip between this and number 1, but I'm going to put it as a 9.9 out of 10, almost perfection for my number 2 spot. The number 1 spot of all the Zelda games that I've ever played is The Legend of Zelda: Twilight Princess. Now, I never got to play the Wii version or the Wii U version. I only played this game on the GameCube, and I heard that that is actually the best way to play this game, so I got lucky in that aspect. The only better version is the Wii U, of course. But everything about this game hit its mark. This is not only the best Zelda game, in my opinion, because it's so dark, it's so gritty, it was so different than the previous installment, and it was just the game I played the most as a kid. I have put the most hours into any Zelda game besides Hyrule Warriors, any main title Zelda game. This is the one I put the most hours in. I have probably beaten this game at least 6 or 7 times. I can just replay this game at any time. It is the best. I loved the introduction to the wolf. The wolf was the coolest thing they have ever added into a Zelda game. They need to bring something like that back. It was just such a cool, unique idea to turn Link into a wolf. You got to use his wolf abilities to fight people. You could even upgrade the wolf by finding golden wolves to upgrade his abilities, to upgrade Link's abilities. You had the coolest partner they have ever introduced to Zelda, which was Midna. Navi's got nothing on Midna. Fi has got nothing on Midna. No one has ever been close to being as badass as Midna ever in a Zelda franchise. Oh my god, this game. I could just go on and on and on about how much I love this game. The art style, like I said, the grittiness, the story was so cool. Having the dark Twilight universe that you went to. The only downside I can even think of is sometimes it could be a little tedious having to swap back and forth, but once you get the ability to turn it to a wolf at will, the game is just awesome. Like I said, I've put so many hours into this, so that is why this game is my #1 spot for all the Zelda games I've ever played. If they bring this to Switch, you ain't gonna see me for weeks, because I will be playing this to 100%. This game, solid 10 out of 10. Like I said, this game and Wind Waker, almost a coin flip. The only difference that made this #1 in my opinion is because I put more hours into this game than I ever did into Wind Waker. So yes, 10 out of 10. This is my #1 best Zelda game. Well, there you have it, folks. My ranking of every Zelda game that I have ever played. Like I said, there are some that I've never got to play, so if I ever get to play those, my list might change. But as of right now, this is the top 13 Zelda games ranked from best to worst. Leave a comment on what your ranking is, and if you agree or disagree with anything on this list. Keep in mind, this is my opinion, so don't hate my list too much, guys. And let me know what your list is so I can compare notes and see how they differ from mine. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe while you're here, because it always helps the channel out. And we'll see you guys on the next video. See you guys later. Bye.